Let's jump in. When you look throughout the Bible at the main characters, if you will, these men and women who changed history, the ones that, their lives have been pinned to paper, and we look at the story of God and who he used, because by the way, everything that God does, he always used people to do. And when he's going to change, how many believe that God wants to move in our community and in our families and in our lives, in our nation, in our world? Well, guess what? That he's going to move using you. He blesses people using people. Like God works through people. And so that's why it's important how we respond, and that's why today's message is important. So all throughout history, like God didn't build the ark. Noah built the ark. Like God did it technically, because God gave him all of that. We know that, but he used people. So as we look throughout history, they were people that were asked or directed by God or shown in a dream to do something great, this opportunity to say yes, no, maybe later. Many times it were things that didn't look good up front, that were scary. There was the element of the unknown. There were things that were hard and sacrificial, things that would cost them their life. Yet as the story played out, we can see that history was changed from their yes. So I wrote down a few of them just to show you what I mean. When God asked Noah to build the ark, his answer was yes. It wasn't raining. There was no flood. It was dry at that time, but God speaks to him and says, I need you to do something. And if you read the story, his family were mocked. They were made fun of. Like, what in the world are you doing? But Noah's answer was yes. He was just head down, obedient and faithful to God, and he preserved the people of God. Abraham said yes when God asked him to leave his homeland. His name was Abram. That's in Genesis 11. But then he says yes to God when God asks him later in the story to sacrifice his only son, the one that was given to him in a miraculous way, because him and Sarah were too old to have children, but they have Isaac, the promise, and he's promised him descendants. Yet he says, now I want you to take him to the altar and sacrifice him. We know now it was a test, but Abraham didn't know what was going to happen. He didn't know where the sacrifice was going to come from. So he takes his son as the sacrifice as God asked. His answer was yes. He passed the test. Joseph said yes when God asked him to forgive his brothers who beat and sold him into slavery. You think about Joseph's yes. His yes to just humbly obey God and have a soft heart and not have bitterness towards God or his family. And he preserves Israel through his yes. Moses said yes when God told him to go to Pharaoh and tell him to let the Israelites go. Moses couldn't even talk right. And he goes back and forth with God a little bit about that. But then finally he says what? Yes. And that's how we have the deliverance of God's people. Rahab said yes when asked to hide the Israelite spies and risk her own life and the lives of her family. But that's what allowed Joshua to get that vision and to be able to see that the promised land was conquerable. This was a part of the story that the people of God would end up taking the land that God had given them. Rahab's yes played a part in that. David said yes when God asked him to fight the giant Goliath. Like God puts it in this young boy's heart to slay this giant who would be the king of Israel one day. David says yes, even though it would look impossible. Esther said yes when Mordecai told her to go to the king to save her people. Isaiah said yes when God's looking for a prophet to Judah. Here I am, Lord, send me. Daniel said yes when God told him to stand firm, not bow down to other idols. Mary said yes when the angel told her, you're going to carry the Son of God. You're a virgin. Nobody's going to think you're a virgin anymore. Your reputation's on the line. All your plans and your dreams to be whatever it was. Now you've got a baby. Now you've been impregnated. Unplanned pregnancy. She says, be it unto me, God, according to thy word. How many know that yes changed the world? Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, staring face to face with this mission that his Father had given him, says, Father, if there's any other way, take this cup of suffering from me. If there's any other way for this to happen, yet not my will, but yours be done. Jesus, yes, changed history. The disciples said yes when Jesus asked them to leave everything behind and follow him. Paul said yes when God asked him to deliver the good news of Jesus to the Gentiles. Yes after yes. I want to tell you today, no's have never changed the world. God's looking for some yes people today. I want you, as I'm talking about this is a simple message today. I want you to get a yes in your spirit. Some of my friends say, we have a phrase, they say, do you have a yes in your pocket? Do you have a yes in your pocket? I want to be ready when God says to do something to say yes. When somebody needs to be served, yes. When an opportunity arises to bless somebody, yes. We are not no people. We're not let us wait and see people. If God's saying it and God's leading it, let our answer be yes. I think about my parents' yes to plant this church in 1999. And led amazing ministries and churches before that. But what we're sitting in today is because of a yes. They didn't know a lot of you at that time. A couple of you they did. They didn't know a lot of you at that time. They didn't know what would come of this. They didn't know the journey that would come about. But God put it on their heart to plant a life-giving church that kids would want to be a part of when they are old enough to want to go to church, that the church that their parents raised them in, this church, that it would be a place where once they got old enough to make their own choice, that they'd still want to come here. I think they accomplished their vision. That's what this church, that was the vision that they had for this church. That was the driving force of it. A life-giving church that when our kids and when kids are old enough to make a decision to either stop coming or go, they'll come here by choice. Thank God for their yes. I think of Pastor Wally Odom's yes, because many of you don't know this story, but Pastor Wally, one of our elders, an amazing pastor and evangelist who has ministered for decades and decades and now is a faithful elder and part of our church, and faces some health challenges, but is so faithful and tenacious in his faith and his support of our church and support of God's people, helps me with, craft messages and encourages me. I think of his yes when he came in 1999 and preached a message and then prayed for my parents. And that prayer is when God spoke to my dad to close the church that he was pastoring and open this one. God gave him a clear vision and a prayer that Pastor Wally Odom prayed in a service that he ministered in because he said yes to God to come here and minister that day. So we talk about my parents' yes. We're talking about Pastor Wally's yes to hear from God and come here and pray and to minister prophetically in the Spirit. That's why we're here today. I think about your yes to be a part of this church family, every member, every tither, every volunteer, because you say yes every week and every year. We are creating a life-giving church, a place where people can come experience the love of God, have their life changed. That's because of your yes. You think about your yes to follow Jesus. The yes to follow Jesus has now changed the course of history in your family. Some of you, and I look out across the room and I know some of you, and I know the story of your life, and I know that your parents didn't say yes to God, but you did. And you think about the generations that'll be changed because you said yes, or because you said yes to go all in with church and raise your kids in the house of God, teaching them the ways of God, that literally your children, their spouses, their children, and their children will be changed because of your yes to put down something that had a hold of you, or an addiction, or a vice, or something, and you have to say yes every day to continue to walk in freedom. Every day that you say yes, you're making a difference in other people's lives, not to mention the difference that it's making in your life. A yes can make a difference. And I just think, as I was preparing this message, I was thinking about 2 Chronicles, it's kind of an obscure verse, but 2 Chronicles 16:9, where it says, "For the eyes of the Lord roam throughout the earth, so that he may uphold or strongly support those whose heart is completely his." I just imagine this is the picture that God's like, he's searching the earth, and he's looking for people whose hearts are all in. So in light of this message today, like he's looking for yes people. He's looking for people who say, "I'm in, God. You can use me." And so as he's searching the world, he's looking for people. He wants to release his, ready for this, his resources, his strength, his guidance. He's going to be looking for people who are yes people. Yes people. Yes, God. Yes, God. I want our church to be a yes church so that God can trust us with the resource and the strength and the power that he has. I want to be good stewards of what God gives us. And God is looking for open-handed people. Yes, people. Come on, everybody say, I have a yes in my spirit. I have a yes in my spirit. Come on, our church, God has a yes in its spirit. Our answer when it comes to what you say, our predetermined answer is yes. Be it unto us according to your word. Father, there might be easier ways, but it's not our will, but your will be done. If it pleases you, if it advances your kingdom, if you ask us to do it, our answer is yes. But you do need to know, by the way, that your yes will cost you. You know that? The yes isn't free. The yes isn't easy. Sometimes it'll cost you your comfort. It'll cost you your time, certainly. It'll cost you your money, your finances, your reputation, your status. Your yes, a lot of times when it comes to God, will cost you your control. Oh man, God will ask you to do things, and it's like now you no longer have as much control, because a lot of times what we're saying yes to is surrender. God, here we are. Here we are. Abraham had no control marching up that mountain with Isaac. Isaac's going, Dad, where's the sacrifice? And he's like, God will provide a sacrifice. And he doesn't know how it's going to happen. He has no control over this situation. The only thing that he has control over is his yes. So a lot of times your yes to God, that will cause you to feel out of control. But when you're saying yes to God, now you are relying on his control. And how many know he can be trusted? Sometimes your yes will cost you your life. How about them apples? We don't now, like where we live in this day and age, like it's almost like the blessing can become the curse. And I don't think it's a curse that we get to live in freedom. That's a blessing. But the blessing can be a curse in this way, is that we just get so comfortable. And we get so self-centered. And it even happens in church. Thank God that this isn't our spirit here, and it's not that like, oh, and we're bashing some, another church that has this spirit, but I'm just saying, like, if we're not careful, we're one selfish thought and decision away from this mindset. But hasn't this mindset crept into the church? Is that like church is something like we shop for them to find one that we like. We give our opinions about things. Our involvement is based on like how much time we think that we have and what our preferences are and what we like. And so we bring this consumeristic mindset into church. Whereas church, like this is what Jesus did. He says, drop your nets, follow me. You don't know how it's going to take place. You don't know how it's going to happen. You're not going to get any recognition. It's not who has the head seat at the table. It's actually the greatest is actually the least. And so Jesus, I'm flipping this whole thing upside down. And so if you want to be great, you have to serve. If you want to be great, you have to be okay with being a nobody. And by the way, it's going to lead to you being crucified. And so the disciples, you know what happened to all the disciples? They died for what they believed. And so today, like because our lives are in danger, what is in danger is our ability to say, God, you have my full yes, because we can get so self-centered. But let's be a church that says, even if it did cost me my life, my answer is yes. If it costs me my time, my answer is yes. If I have to switch around my schedule to God, put you first and your house first, the answer is yes. If I have to sacrifice, if I have to give, my answer is yes, because you have done so much for me. If you never did anything else, you've already done enough for us to worship and sacrifice and give for all of eternity. But how many know, but he's not done blessing us. He's not done working through us. But even if he was, he's already done enough. And that's why we have a grateful heart, one of our values. So I'm going to transition here and kind of talk about, as a church, what our yes can be. Because you have to, and this will just, I'm going to trust the Holy Spirit to apply this yes message and this yes thought. It's really a thought to your life. Because you have to, before I move on, let me just say this real quick. You have to say yes every day. Spouses, you said yes at the altar, but you have to say yes every day. To honor your wife, to honor your husband, to be faithful to your wife, to be faithful to your husband. Like that's an everyday yes. And you could say yes every day of your life. And one day you wake up and you say, and then that's where things go sideways. Come on, how many know we got to say yes every day? Every day. Men, when you come home from work and you're tired and you've poured it all out and you're sitting in your driveway, like you have to say yes to go inside and be a great life-giving dad. Because when you feel like going in and it's like, I want to go in and prop my feet up and everybody serve me, as Christian men, we go in and we say, but we're not here to be served. So I got to say yes right now to go in and be life-giving and go and serve my wife and serve my kids. Like you have to say yes every day when you go to work to not just show up and be a bump on a log and get through the day until Friday. You have to say, yes, I'm here to be a light. I'm here to shine Jesus, even if I'm not talking about Jesus, and even if I'm doing work that has nothing to do with Jesus, I can show Jesus by the way that I treat people and love people and have integrity, and the way that I do deals, and the way that I work, and the way that I treat my boss. I'm going to have integrity in the way that I talk. You have to say yes for that. And so I just want you to carry that thought today personally. Is my answer every day is yes to God. But as a church now, I'm going to kind of shift and talk about how we can say yes to something as a church that we are called to by God. It's part of the Great Commission. So our mission is to lead people to be fully devoted followers of Jesus, and that happens through the 5 plays that we run. We have a lot of sports lingo around here because we like sports, but the plays that we run, it's like these are the things that we do all the time. Is that we have Sunday services, we have small groups, we have serve teams, we have prayer on the 3rd Thursday of every month, and we give. We're a tithing church. And when people run the 5 plays, you're fully in. You're all the way in, and your life will begin to look fully devoted to God. It's more than just church involvement. It's about a life that's all in with God. And we're going to teach all about that. That's our mission. But there's another part of the call to Christians, and that's that it doesn't stop in Jerusalem, if you will, but it goes to Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. So for us, it's not like Gainesville, where we're in Bristol right now, but our Gainesville, where our building's going to be, it starts in Gainesville, right? And then it moves out beyond to Northern Virginia, and then it moves out beyond that to this nation and to this world. How many believe? And how many, you might look a little crazy believing this, but how many believe in faith that our church, that Love Church, is going to make a difference in the United States of America? We're in a pretty good place for that to happen as we affect people week in and week out that are in high places and making influential decisions. But how many believe we can make a difference across the world? How many know we're called to make a difference across the world? Now, I just want to teach you for a moment to make sure that you understand this. The pattern of our faith being lived out, and this is God. This is God's pattern. This is biblical, is at home first and then across the world. And this will preach to your personal life as well. Like, we start here. My greatest responsibility as a pastor is to you first. So if you're in need and somebody out there is in need, you might say, well, the world would say we got to be to everyone. That sounds good, but that's not logical or practical. Sometimes you have to choose. And when you have to choose, you go home first. Because if the home gets weak, then you have nothing to be able to give anyway. Does that make sense? You in the airplane when they say put your mask on first before you give your mask to somebody else, do you know why they say that? I've talked to people who laugh about that and they don't know why. They say that because you can't put a mask on somebody else if you pass out. So put your mask on, then you can put your mask on your kids and stuff like that. This is a biblical principle that we take care of here, and as here is strong, we work our way out. That's godly, that's biblical. And by the way, that's how, if you structure a nation that way, you're gonna have a great nation. That's why borders and all of that are important. Again, it's not political stuff. It's like, if you want to do it God's way, this works. Other ways don't work. This works. So as a Christian, you need to know your greatest responsibility is at home. At home. So for me, I said, you're my first priority. That's as far as out there. My first priority is Brittany. And then my next priority is Rayleigh, Roman, Judah, and Izzy. If they're in need from me, then you don't get me. They get me. And then once they're set, then I minister to our church. And then as I minister to our church, then we go outside the walls. Are y'all getting this, everybody? That's you too. Don't give your job the best version of you. Give your family the best version of you. Parents, you're the pastors of your home. You're the pastors of your home. You're the pastors of your home. Sir, you say, I haven't been a Christian very long. I don't know how to do it. That's why you need to be in men's groups. That's why you need friends. That's why you need to be involved in the life of the church so we can help each other, be the pastors of our home. Because your kids are not going to just do what I say from the stage or what their kids' teacher says. Thank God for that, because that's a supplement. Your kids are going to grow up doing what you do, doing what they see you doing, what they hear you teaching. And so you're the pastor of your home. It starts at home and it moves its way out. All right, are y'all following me? Are you with me? So this is how missions work. We are called to Gainesville. We're called to build a great life-giving church here, but it's not either or. It goes out into the world, and we are called to be a blessing. So I want to give you kind of the call from God, and I'm going to do it in a very methodical way. I'm going to read the Great Commission. It's like Jesus' last words, his final call, his final command, the Great Commission in each of the Gospels and in the book of Acts. Okay, so Matthew 28, 18 through 20, this is the most famous one. It says, and Jesus came up and spoke to them, saying, all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of, here it is, all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to follow all that I commanded you. And behold, I'm with you always to the end of the age. Mark 16, 15. And he said to them, go into, here it is, all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. Luke 24, 45 through 49, then he opened their minds to the scriptures. This is Jesus, and he said to them, so it is written that the Christ would suffer and rise from the dead on the third day, and that repentance for forgiveness of sins would be proclaimed in his name. 2, here it is, all the nations, and watch this, beginning in Jerusalem. You are witnesses of these things. And behold, I am sending the promise of my Father upon you. That's the Holy Spirit. And you are to stay in the city until you're clothed from power from on high. We're teaching on the Holy Spirit in our series, Clothed in Power, after Easter. John chapter 20, verse 21. So Jesus said to them, peace be to you, just as the Father has sent me, I also send you. We are a sent people. We are not an inactive people. We don't sit on our hands. We don't come to just consume. Come on, we are sent. When we leave the auditorium today, we are sent into the world. As missionaries to our lives, as missionaries to the people in our worlds, you are a sent people. You need to know that today, no matter who you are, no matter if you're falling asleep during my message, no matter if you haven't been at church, you feel newer, you don't know a lot, you're sent into the world to carry this message into the lives of the people that you interact with. So as the Father sent me, I also send you. And then the book of Acts showing the birth of the church and the Holy Spirit falling and awakening and birthing the church that is now still in existence today. Acts chapter 1, verse 8, Jesus says, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you shall be my witnesses, or my evangels, is that word. You're going to go tell the good news, both in Jerusalem and in Judea, and Samaria, and as far as the remotest part of the earth, or to the ends of the earth. Everybody, the call is to preach the gospel, starting at home, and then to the ends of the earth. To disciple people, to teach people, to love people, to serve people. And then Paul says in Romans 10, I want to read you this. He says, for everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Praise God. But then he asks these questions, and I want you to hear this. And let this speak to you as a Christian. Listen. How then are they to call on him in whom they have not believed? And how are they to believe in him whom they have not heard? And how are they to hear without a preacher? But how are they to preach unless they are sent? Just as it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring the good news of good things. How can they believe if they don't hear? And how can they hear if somebody doesn't tell them? And how can somebody tell them if they're not sent? Can I just say today that this message is a message where I'm reminding you that you are sent and called to go into the world and preach Jesus to people. And when it says preacher, it's not talking about the office of a pastor or the office of a preacher or evangelist. This is talking about the evangels or the martyrs or the witnesses. That's all Christians that are called into the world. Listen, you are called to evangelize your friends. And another thing about the church that's crept into the church, this belief that the way that we evangelize is to bring people to let our pastor tell them about Jesus. That is not the correct way to think about church. The way to think about church is this is where the Christians are edified, built up, taught, discipled. We get our doctrine. We get filled with the Spirit. We stir each other up. We encourage each other to love and good works. And then 1, 2, 3, ready, break. We go into the world and we live Jesus. We preach Jesus. We pray for people. Yes, we invite them to church, all of that, but you need to know you're the evangelist. And we're going to teach about it in Fully Devoted. I'm excited about that because some of you go, but I don't know how to do that. We're going to tell you how. And why do we need to go to small groups? Because we're going to sit in small groups and talk about how. How do you literally do this on Tuesday? What do you say? This is what I'm scared of. I've done this before and it fell flat. I've done this before and I didn't know what to say. They asked me this question and I didn't know how to answer it. You have to be in small groups during Fully Devoted so we can talk about this. Are you hearing me? Because the call is to you. What's your answer going to be? Your answer has to be yes, if we care about people, if we know that heaven and hell is real and people are dying every day and going to one of the two places. Might as well not sugarcoat it. People go to hell every day, and people go to heaven every day. Come on, how many know it matters? And I'm not evangelizing your coworkers because they're not here right now, but they'll be there tomorrow. And so what do? We go and we tell. We are the preachers. God's looking for some people who say yes, 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 yes. And there's people across the world, and there's children that are underprivileged. There are areas of poverty that are so great and lack development so much that they haven't even heard the gospel. That's wild to us who have the Bible on an app on our phone. It's wild to us to be able to think that there are places that the Bible's illegal. You can't even have the Bible. You can't have it on an app. You can't have the actual physical copy. There are people that we partner with that smuggle Bibles into illegal places, that get the word out, that train pastors that are in underground churches. We're going to talk about these things, but how many know we can make a difference all across the world to not just preach to a coworker, not just give an altar call on Sunday, but take the gospel to the ends of the earth. And so as a church, that the call of God is to Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, to the ends of the earth. Take the love of God, take the gospel. And so as a church, what's our response going to be? So I want to take just the last part of this message, these last few minutes of this message, and get really practical. So I've been kind of like preaching to you now, but now I just want to tell you and talk to you and teach you about what our strategy is as a church. And I want it to be clear and kind of let you know that coming into the pandemic in 2020, and then for the next couple of years after that, global missions, like what we do across the world, like all of that for American churches kind of got shut down because of travel and all of that. And so as a church, we haven't taken mission trip in the last few years. All of our global, we've still been giving and doing things financially, globally, but we haven't really been involved in it. So if you've come to our church in the last 4 years, and if I had people lift their hand, that would be a lot of people, you wouldn't know what is our philosophy or our strategy when it comes to missions. And so I just want to tell you for a few minutes what our strategy is and let you know that 2024 is the year that we are reactivating the global arm of our mission strategy, and you're going to be able to have a chance to be a part of that. But I want you to see how it all fits. And so it starts with local. So our church's yes for, you can really divide Jesus' call into like two parts without going into like the history of it and geography of it. But like Jerusalem and Judea was the region where Jerusalem was in. And so when Jesus says Jerusalem and Judea, it's like right here at home in the surrounding area. If I may make a comparison, let's just do this. Gainesville in Northern Virginia. It's like Gainesville, but not everybody that just lives in Gainesville. We have people in our church that drive in from Arlington and Fairfax. We have people that come from out in, Fauquier and Remington. And so like that's our Judea. Do y'all see what I mean? So for Jerusalem and Judea, our yes is to build a church in Gainesville, both literally a building. We're building a building, right? We're raising money for that. But build a church family in Gainesville, Virginia that'll change Northern Virginia, the area that we occupy. This church will continue to lead people to become fully devoted followers of Jesus. That starts with telling them about Jesus, getting them through the doors of church, getting them discipled, and we're all on the journey of becoming fully devoted followers of Jesus. That starts with me, and that's all of us, and that's why small groups and serve teams and prayer and giving is so important, because it's a constant journey to become more like Christ. I already told you the 5 things we do as a church: services, groups, teams, prayer, giving. If you want to know more about that, you can always go to the big giant thing that says get connected out there on your left as you walk out, and it's 3 steps. It's painfully obvious. You can read right on the banners what each class, what each step is, and you can go through the 3 steps and know all about how to get in a group, how to be on a team, why we do what we do, how to be involved. So we are, as far as Jerusalem and Judea, we are building a church that will lead people to become fully devoted followers of Jesus. This is what we do every day, every week, and every year. If you need to find me in 30 years, God willing, I'll be here building this church, partnering with God as he builds the church. And now I want to move to really what I want to talk about today. That's our yes for Samaria and the ends of the earth, if you will. So in the context of what Jesus is talking about, Samaria is the first kind of like layer of this that would include people that weren't Jewish. It was kind of like a, scholars would say like a mixed breed of people, because they were like Samaritans were half Jew, half Gentile. They had intermarried, and so now you've got this region of Samaria. Jews didn't really go there. We've got a lot of great scripture about things that happened in Samaria and with Samaritans, and so when he says Samaria, now you ready for this? It's people who aren't like us. So, and then to the ends of the earth, and that was the ends of the known earth, which would have been a lot different than our known earth. So we know a lot about the globe today and what the needs are, and where the window where the gospel is not preached, and where the gospel is not even allowed in certain areas. We know all these things. We have information. We have technology. And so when it says ends of the earth, it's basically this. You ready? As far as we can go with whatever we can do. And so our yes for Samaria and the ends of the earth, if you will, is to relaunch Love Missions, particularly globally, to be a thriving and integral part to what we do. And that starts with creating awareness among our church for what we already do, and then reactivating the global arm of what we do. So there are things that we do all the time that you might not even know about, and that's a shame, because we do them all the time, and you are already involved with them, even if you don't know, if you give. But this is to let you know what we already do, and then to tell you what we haven't done yet. I wrote down the Love Missions strategy. This is like what is on paper. We got to get it on our website and stuff. But this is our Love Missions strategy. And it says this, you ready? Love Church is committed to impacting our world beyond the regular ministries of our church. Scripture guides us to first focus our ministry on our church community, and then move beyond that into local, national, and global impact. We are committed to advancing the kingdom and caring for the less fortunate at home and across the globe. Our strategy is to leverage our investments of time and finances to produce the greatest EROI, eternal return on investment. And I want you to know that if you haven't been around here very long, then you might not have heard this yet, but if you've been around, eternal return on investment, meaning, God, we want to be great stewards. When we spend $1 or we spend an hour serving, what can we do to produce the greatest impact so that we can be good stewards with what you've given us? One way we do this is through strategic partnerships with missionaries and missions partners that are excellent and efficient at what they do. We also aim for sustained, long-term impact that'll last for generations. We find partners who are connected to local churches and organizations that are committed to their communities for the long haul. This means that when we look to South America, when we look into Africa, we're not just trying to drop in and build a house and take pictures and say, woo, look at us, like look at the difference that we're making. You can do more damage than good. We go and we say, who's there? Who's been there for decades? Who's going to be there for decades? Where are the local churches? Where are the pastors in the community? So that whatever we do build or whatever we do will be able to be sustained and integrated into the health of the community so that we can make a difference. And some of this stuff that I'm about to talk to you about, I got to tell you, we're going to look back in like 30 years later and see that what we've been able to do over decades is going to change communities. But it's not a drop in, drop out thing and look at us thing. It's so we will be humble enough to say sometimes it's let's write a check to an organization that needs money, that's been there, and the only thing stopping them from going to the next level or building that church or digging that well is finances. But it might be to send people because they need 20 guys that know how to build something, and so us coming in and building it, but we're going to do it alongside that pastor. We're going to do it alongside those community leaders. Are y'all understanding kind of our philosophy as a church? And so I want to show you the 3 arms of missions right now and let you know that as we go through these 3 arms, there are going to be opportunities for you to be involved in 3 ways. And that's you can pray for all of these. So some of you I know are like prayer warriors, you're prayer people, and you want to write these down and you'll pray for them. Some of you are going to be able to just support it by your giving. And when you give in legacy offering and when you give in your tithes, you're supporting them. And then there's going to be an opportunity to go. Pray, give, and go. There's going to be an opportunity to serve physically in some of these areas. And so locally, I'm going to run through this really fast. Number 1, we do our food pantries every other week, and we're serving around 200 families every other week right here in the local community. We drop off these not drop off, but we deliver to these families these groceries. And that team, Clark and Cheryl, I think I saw you in here somewhere, but they lead it, and that team of people that every other week, this past week in the cold, I mean, they're just loading up the trailers in Gainesville. We drive them. It's a mobile food pantry. It's incredible. It's incredible what these people do. If you want to be involved in it, go to Get Connected. You can serve every other Thursday and be a part of blessing these people. And so our food pantries, that's you can. I'm putting up the website too of each one of these things so that you can find out how to be involved. WeLoveChurch.com to find out more about our food pantries. 2 is Mosaic, Virginia. I mentioned them earlier. Pregnancy Resource Center in Loudoun County. And by the way, these are the main partners or the main outreaches in each of these areas. We divided up local, national, global. It's not the only. But the second one is Mosaic, Virginia. For years, they have been a main partner of ours in helping young women who are in unplanned pregnancies. So mosaicvirginia.org there. And you can serve there if you want to. But we serve there every year at Love Day, and we give every year and throughout the year to financially support them. 3 is Common Recovery, one of our main local missions partners. It's addiction recovery ministry in Prince William County that provides housing and classes and programs to help those that are suffering in addiction to get free, to get jobs, to get back on their feet. They take a lot of people from the local jails in. They've got great favor and connection with Prince William County Jail. And so you can find out more on commonrecovery.org, but we support Chuck and Desiree in their ministry financially, and then in any other way that we can come alongside. We host their banquet at our offices each year. They teach a program on Friday nights that if you know anybody that's in addiction that needs help, Friday night at the Gainesville offices, they run a program. And so you can find out all of that at commonrecovery.org. Those are 3 of our main outreaches locally. You can be involved in all of them, and when you give, you support all of them. How many think that's awesome? All right. Nationally, if you will, so it's not globally, but it's not here local necessarily. One of our greatest missions partners is the Mighty Oaks Foundation. Chad Robichaux, who comes here often, serving our nation's veterans and first responders through faith-based resiliency and recovery programs. I could say so much about this, but that's not what I want to spend my time on today. But we honor our veterans. We acknowledge and honor our first responders who put their lives on the line so that we can have our nation, so that we can have our communities and live in safety. And so this comes alongside those that have served and who are struggling with PTSD, et cetera. And it's a faith-based program that we are financially and physically involved in. 4 times a year, there is a week-long program that people fly in for in Haymarket. It's one of the 3 locations, and our church provides all of the hospitality, food, and beverage, and serves every single one of those 4 weeks. If you want to serve, go to Get Connected, and you can find out more about how to be on that team. But we also financially support them. How many know that's awesome? And then also we plant churches in partnership with the ARC, the Association of Related Churches, that's planting churches at about 20 or 30 churches a year, mostly in America, but now across the world. And we give every single year, and we're in a relationship with the Association of Related Churches. So when you give, you plant churches, and the church is the hope of the world. All right, so that's kind of like nationally. Those are our 2 main partners nationally. And then globally, and this is what I want to really hone in on here at the end, and then I'll close. But you're going to hear more because we're going to do a Hope Sunday later on this spring, and we'll announce it But One Child is an organization that builds hope centers for children in hard places, providing holistic care so that they have hope and they can thrive. And this is similar to some of the organizations that you might have heard of, like Compassion, where you sponsor a child. But this is the best program that I've ever seen. I know the leaders. I've come to know some of the leaders really well. And so One Child is starting in 2024, the international partner for child sponsorships that our church is going to be coming alongside. They build a hope center that does food, digs wells, has clean water, provides schooling and education, but also they only build hope centers next to a local church in partnership with a local pastor. And so they literally transform communities. You are going to have the opportunity in April to sponsor a child. What makes One Child even better is you're not writing letters back and forth, but at their hope centers, they have iPads, basically, where these kids can communicate with the families that are sponsoring them. Your children can chat back and forth with them, send pictures back and forth. You develop a relationship, and then, watch this, we'll be taking missions trips to the Hope Center that we're sponsoring so you can go and meet the kids that you've been sponsoring. It's going to be an incredible partnership. One Child. And we're in discussion right now about settling on exactly where it's going to be, but it's going to be on the continent of Africa, and we're still settling exactly which Hope Center that we're going to help launch. But we're going to help launch a Hope Center and sponsor children for years to come. Second is World Compassion. These are the guys who will be sending Bibles and training pastors in areas where the gospel is restricted. And this is something that you're not going to be traveling to these places. Missions trips aren't allowed. Because some of the work that they do, it's kind of like the Christian mafia. And they are getting the Bible into these places. They are training pastors in these places. And obviously, they're risking their lives, but they need financial support. And you're going to be hearing about what we can do with World Compassion. But World Compassion is taking the gospel into the restricted areas of the world. And this is going to be super exciting. You're going to hear more about it as 2024 goes on. And then the last one is this, Camino de Vida. Local church in Lima, Peru. That's where I was last Sunday. That serves not only as a life-giving church, 10,000 people go there each week, but also a hub for missions throughout South America. Pastor Robert Baird, who planted the church 35 years ago, has trained over 150,000 pastors in South America and continues to train them through roundtables throughout the whole continent. And Central America, by the way. But there is a massive influence that Camino de Vida has in the church in South America. He told us stories of pastors coming to these trainings with no shoes. They don't have anything. Their church is literally in a mud hut. He told a story of a pastor that came in to get trained, and he was sobbing, crying because his wife had been eaten by cannibals in the jungle. Like, this is like real. This is talking about giving your life for a yes. And he's training them, giving them leadership principles and things that they've never heard before so the church can be strong. So it's not just a local church in Lima, Peru, but it's making a difference in all of South America. And they're known for their outreach. They have 8 arms of outreach in Lima, in the nation of Peru. They build wheelchairs for those who can't afford them. I got to watch kids that had been carried to the church by their parents and sat in a chair, get a wheelchair custom built for their size. The kid gets put in it. The family's sobbing because now they have mobility. We don't know these types of problems in America. They have a mobility now. They don't have to carry them around. The kid can get around by themselves, and they're sobbing, crying, saying thank you. Then they teach them how to use the wheelchair. Meanwhile, the government's so corrupt, the mayor is there having brought buses of people from the airport that are disabled, and they're taking credit. And Pastor Robert leans over to us and says, the reason that we let them take the credit is because of what you're seeing happening on their faces. After they move from teaching them how to use the wheelchair, they say, but let us teach you about God. And they begin to give them the gospel. And I watched family after family after family lifting their hands saying yes to receiving Jesus as their Lord and Savior. And that's why Pastor Robert said, we don't care who gets the credit, we're sharing the gospel. And they've changed the city of Lima and the nation of Peru. They have huge favor. He's advised 5 presidents. This church is making a huge difference in South America. Now let me tell you how we're going to be involved. Pastor Robert's salary for 35 years has been supported because they're American missionaries. They can't get paid in Peru, and they don't want to get paid by their church because these people don't have much. And so for Pastor Robert to be able to minister to his church and not have to travel around the world for support, Pastor Delos Shields, an amazing father figure in my life. He was a good friend of my dad. He pastors in Gaithersburg, Maryland, Church of the Redeemer. Stepped up, and his church for 35 years has paid Pastor Robert Barriger's salary in Lima. Pastor Robert, this past weekend, and this is why I was there, passed the reins of the church, the leadership of the church, to his son, Pastor Taylor. And God put it on my heart on behalf of our church to come alongside of 2 other churches, Heights Church in Richmond, Community Church in Ashburn, to step up and say, Pastor Taylor, you're never going to have to go around and raise support either, because we're going to support you for the next 35 years. And so you guys need to know right now that this church and all of the ministry that they do, all the roundtables, all the training in South America, the strengthening of the church that they've done around the world, and now Pastor Taylor's taking that baton and running, you need to know that every time you give a tithe, that our church is supporting that church and supporting that pastor. And then also, we're going to come alongside them with projects. We're sowing a seed out of legacy offering also to their missions projects to help buy more wheelchairs, build more wheelchairs, and hand more wheelchairs out. They feed people. They have nutrition programs. They go into the jungle. They fly on government planes because they have that much favor. Government planes, pallets of food into communities that don't have enough food, and it has nutrition. They have they come alongside the elderly. They go grocery shopping for the elderly. 8 arms of outreach that they have. We're going to be sowing seeds of generosity to their outreach budget so that they can do more and more outreach. And then watch this. On September 7th of this year, we are going to Lima, and we're going to get a chance to see and to serve and to get our hands dirty and to come alongside them and do the work of the ministry in Lima. Come on. The first mission trip of Love Church in over 7 years is happening this year. Are you excited? Let's go. So watch this, a couple of details, and I'm going to close. September 7th through 13th, it's a Saturday through a Friday. We're going to go serve the city of Lima, surrounding areas. We'll be building wheelchairs. We're going to be repairing a few homes of people whose homes are falling apart, literally. Feeding the hungry, doing the clothing drives. You're going to get a chance to go and to do all of it. Churches go and help them with this. That's how they're able to do missions beyond anything that they could do. They have 200 volunteers a week come out from their own church in Lima to do this. Every Saturday, 52 weeks a year, they do these things. But then churches fly in and give more hands and more help and more money to be able to reach all of the people. And so last year, they served 220,000 people. And we're going to get to go do that. Between One Child World Compassion and Camino de Vida, starting in South Africa, and then in parts of Asia that we don't even know yet, our church is going to be going in the calendar year 2024. So our influence moves beyond Jerusalem and Judea and goes to Samaria and the ends of the earth. Now, as I conclude right now, if you're excited, I want you to clap your hands, give God glory, lift the faith in the room. Come on, we're going to make a difference to the ends of the earth.